Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in date about Kagurabachi, chapter number 100. Yes, I did not misspeak. It's chapter number 100. 100, 10 times 10, 50 times 2, 25 times 4, 20 times 5, 9 times 11.111 repeating. It's chapter 100 of Kagurabachi, and legitimately, sitting down and starting this manga 2+ years ago, it's almost like 2 years and 2 months, somewhere around there, sitting down being like, oh, there's this new manga, Weekly Shonen Jump called Kagurabachi. It's getting memed on Twitter constantly. People are like, oh, this MC is holding this pose. The week before that, we had this series called Mama Yu Yu come out, and I'm like, oh, that was a very interesting first chapter. I wonder what this Kagurabachi series is going to be about. Literally the day after, there's a series called Two on Ice that came out the next week in Weekly Shonen Jump. It's like, oh, that manga, oh, I'm interested about that one too. It's an ice skater manga, but in between, there's this little manga called Kagurabachi, sandwiched in between those two. And literally all of that time ago, I could have not expected how much this series of Kagurabachi would mean to me as a person, because, like, I am sitting down here for the past, 60-something chapters of Kagurabachi. Every single Sunday, or at least as close to it as I can get, I've been sitting down and talking about this manga whenever it releases. And here we are at chapter number 100. It's just a big number. It's a milestone, one of the biggest ones this manga will probably ever reach. I mean, from now on, it's like chapter 200, 300, 400. Like, yeah, 150 is going to be cool, but not as cool as chapter 100. And legitimately, what an interesting chapter 100 of Kagurabachi this was, for the main fact of every single prediction that I could have ever made about, like, oh yes, this is what's going to be happening in Kagurabachi. Fun fact, none of it happened. Like, of course, everybody's been like, hey, Chihiro and Samura, chapter number 100, they'll appear, right? Of course, there's this whole theory for a little while being like, oh, hey, you know what else is going to happen? We're going to have this thing where, Hakuri gets possessed by the Shinichi, and he goes around and starts destroying everything, and Chihiro, using, their fun powers, are gonna have to come through and save Hakuri from all this happening. And of course, we don't even see Chihiro. We don't see Samura. We do see Hakuri in this chapter, but legitimately, we don't focus on really any of that. As of course, last time in Kagurabachi, which was last chapter number 99, we had this whole chapter really focusing on, hey, Kiri and Hakuri had made it up to where Ikuto Hagiwara had just taken out one of the Hishaku members, whose name we learned was Yukisada, and pretty much helped take out him, stop him from being the vessel for a moment and doing all this other various stuff, until eventually Yura walked into room and just, killed and destroyed a few guys, and at the same point came through and just well, I'm looking for the Sword Saint, so I'll catch you guys later, pretty much, and walked on his merry way. And the very end of last chapter was we got to the lowest level of the Kabanabe HQ, as now we also learn in this chapter that area is called the dungeon. And pretty much we just saw it was this massive concrete thing, and underneath, trapped into concrete, was none other than the Sword Saint himself. And of course, that's where we ended off the chapter with Yura being like, well, I'm going to kill this man next chapter, and that's going to be the end of Kagurabachi, because hey, Samura's going to be dead, that plotline doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? And with all of that happening, yeah, that's sort of where we start off this chapter of Kagurabachi. I don't think if I mentioned it earlier, but this is titled chapter number 100, in quotation marks, The Sword Master. And of course, before we get into this chapter fully, I have a little bit of a story to tell about my morning and this chapter of Kagurabachi. So, of course, as I've mentioned, it's Sunday here in the United States of America, and I live on the East Coast in North Carolina. Oh my gosh, I'm doxing myself, right? But of course, I got up early this morning, I was super hyped, I'm like, man, chapter 100 of Kagurabachi comes out today. I legitimately can't wait to sit down and read this chapter. And going through all of this, I was going through my normal morning routine. I got up, got on my computer, a new Digimon card game set came out recently, so I was tinkering with some decks on there, and I'm like, oh crap, I haven't had much free time recently, so I haven't been able to edit any of my YouTube videos, and I've had a few recorded, so let me sit down and edit a few of those. I ended up editing one of those this morning, a Weekly Shonen Jump video for all of you guys out there who care about that series that I do. Hey, I talk about Kagurabachi for 5 minutes in each of those videos, so it sort of is what it is there, right? Go check those videos out. I often like them. I think they're pretty funny, right? And eventually I sort of sat down and did that, And of course, I forgot that now it is daylight savings time, or not, it's no longer daylight saving time, it's now standard time in the United States of America, right? And what that means is like, hey, manga chapters now come out an hour earlier. And I was still under the impression that they came out at 11 o'clock. Granted, this happened last week, but I somehow forgot about all of this, right? So I rushed down like, crap, I need to go make some breakfast so I can get to my recording studio so I can sit down and talk about this chapter of Kagurabachi whenever it comes out. And I sort of walk over to my fridge, and I open it up, I'm like, all right, I need to grab my eggs out, let me get my pan, my butter, because I was just going to, like, dice up some eggs. Like, I wasn't really going to scramble them, just, like, sort of fry them and just, like, eat, like, 6 eggs for breakfast. That's what I was going to do. And I open up my fridge, and I'm like, oh no, I forgot to buy eggs yesterday. So I immediately am like, oh crap, I'm like, I guess I have to go to the dining hall. The dining hall doesn't open for like another 10 minutes. So I get down to the dining hall after I like get all change and all everything in my backpack, like I got my computer, my headphones, like my charging cable, all of the various stuff that I need to record these videos, and that's not the microphone that I rent out pretty much. And I go down to the dining hall and I'm standing there and it's like all of these people around. And for some reason I decided to not wear my Kagurabachi shirt today. I don't know why I did. But as I'm sitting down there, I ended up seeing somebody who I know knows a little bit about Kagurabachi. It was my former roommate. I'm not going to dox his name here because, like, I need to, like, say what his name is. But, of course, in my dorm room last year, I didn't know about this spot I'm currently recording in right now, which is in my broadcasting building. So instead, what I did was I would just sit in my room and record the videos. And on Sunday mornings, he was normally asleep, and I'd have to wake him up like, man, it's 11 a.m. I'm talking about Kagurabachi now. And I sort of get up there, and I walk up to him, and I'm like, hey, man, do you know what today is? And he's like, what do you mean? It's like the Lord's Day? And I'm like, yeah, it's Sunday, but like, what else is it? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, thinking about like what national holiday is today. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, man, it's Kagurabachi Day. He's like, oh yeah, Kagurabachi, I remember you talking. I'm like, yeah, don't you remember Iori and Samura? Like, I remember one specific chapter that he was so locked into me talking about the chapter, and goes, chapter number 73 of Kagurabachi during the Samura flashback, and like all the things going on with like him and Iori and all of that like very delicate subject matter there. And I remember he was like locked in listening. I'm like, dude, you know what today is? He's like, no. And I'm like, it's chapter 100 of Kagurabachi. And then I talked to him for a few minutes. But then on my way, walking to the building I am currently sitting in, it's about a 6 or 8 minute walk from my dining hall where I ended up eating breakfast. I didn't really eat a good breakfast. It was like an egg, a donut, and a piece of chicken. I love college dining hall food. For legal reasons, that's a joke. And God, I hate dining hall food. Oh my gosh, I wish I had my eggs this morning. How could I forget that so bad? But really the big cool part of this story is as soon as I opened up this chapter, it became 10 a.m., I went to the Shonen Jump app, swiped up, reloaded it, and clicked on Kagurabachi chapter number 100. I downloaded the chapter and opened it up. And as we see the first page, of course, which reads, the Kabanabi headquarters, the lowest level, the dungeon. I rounded a corner on my campus, and I sort of looked up from my phone, and as I did, I saw one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen on my college campus. And of course, I live in an area in the mountains of North Carolina. Geez, I'm really doxing myself. How many colleges are in the mountains of North Carolina? Oh my gosh, what am I doing to myself here? But either way, I did all of that, and I'll put the image up here on screen now. It's probably been up for a minute. But I just go, and I see all of these red maple leaves on the ground, coating the ground almost in like this blood red hue of beauty. As I open up this chapter, Yura is just here on top of the Kabanabi headquarters of the lowest level of the dungeon, hand touching the bottom or the top of this mound. And he just thinks, oh, you're so far away, but you could hear me thanks to the Shinuchi. I walk by, I crunch these leaves, and walk on my way. And that's where I was when I read chapter 100 of Kagurabachi. And by that same metric, if you guys are watching this video right now, I would like you all to leave a comment down in the comment section of this video. Where were you guys when you read chapter number 100 of Kagurabachi? Were you getting out of bed and brushing your teeth? Were you at work? Were you in your church parking lot? Or did you read the leaks and you were just like sitting down on a park bench somewhere or in your car after going to Walmart? I've read a Kagurabachi chapter in I think all of these places before. Just let me know, where were you when you read chapter number 100 of Kagurabachi? But with all of that out of the way, I think I've rambled for I don't know how long. God, I've been recording for 10 minutes. I hope that's not how long it takes me to get into this chapter of Kagurabachi, but you know what? Maybe it is. But let's get into chapter number 100 of Kagurabachi, titled Sword Master. But of course, as I just mentioned, Yura is standing here just his hand is on this concrete dome, pretty much you're so far away, but you could hear me thanks to the Shinichi. As of course, Yura is holding his hand on top of this dome right over the dungeon. As of course, we now get the chapter title, chapter number 100, Sword Master. And as we get this chapter title, we suddenly cut into an image of a flashback, one that we have seen before, and of course it is the main image we've seen of the Seitai War, with all of the enchanted blade bears facing off against the Sword Master, standing atop this ruined tower, the centipede coiling around. And as this happens, we just get a little bit of narration about the Sword Master. The sword bear of the Magatsumi, also known as the Shinichi, dubbed the Sword Master, Akemura Soga. We have a name for this guy. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely crazy and insane. As you just get a 2-page spread of Akemura Soga, the Sword Saint, lounging around on the top of this ruined tower. The Shinichi is stabbed into the ground in front of him as the centipede is sort of swirling around. It's just a really cool image, all things considered, right? As I just love how we see his black cape, or not his black cape, his suit jacket almost just flowing around in the wind behind him. It's just such a cool image that we get here. As we just get some more narration, as this seemed to be from Yura mainly, as Yura's just talking about him here in a moment. As Yura just continues being hey, the man who wielded the strongest enchanted blade and unleashed the malediction, annihilating 20,000 lives on the island of Shokoku. Afterward, he was contained by the other 5 enchanted blade bears and imprisoned here in this dungeon. There was no time to conduct a true psychological evaluation, so any diagnosis of his mental health was just a mere conjecture. As we also see some sorcerer guy from the Kabanabi, presumably, is just now talking about the Sword Master's mental health. He's just faced in the masses of all of the corpses that he was, and surmised by the Shinichi's powers, he probably devolved into a severely deranged state, pretty much. If we remember, insanity can sometimes dramatically heighten a sorcerer's abilities, and the tremendous scale and power of the malediction really made this theory so much more compelling due to all of our research. As of course, remember all the stuff that recently happened with Ikuto and Kugara here 2 chapters ago. It's oh yeah, he was a crazy guy who insanity sort of bolstered all of his power, so it sort of makes sense there. It's sort of fun to be oh yeah, Hokazono sort of planned this out. He gave us the crumbs 2 chapters ago, and oh hey, here now. He's probably insane. That's where all of his power came from. We'll see, maybe, right? But either way, the narration just continues. With no definitive proof, they locked him away under heavy confinement to avoid any further stimulation, and only have monitored his external behavior since. And now, after 18 years of silence, this is his first human contact. As it's so crazy. 18 years this guy was locked up. I am 20 years old. My entire life that I really remember, the Swordmaster has been locked away underground. Akemura Soga has not talked, has not conversed, has not really moved at all in 18 years. It's crazy to think about, legitimately. But of course, as all of this happens, Yura just said a second ago, hey, we can talk to each other, so let's do that, right? As Yura just says, well, Swordmaster, we meet at last. I've come to kill you. As of course, we just get a really good look at Yura's eyes, as we see a little bit of the black that's inside of them starts to fade a little bit. As we now cut to underneath the prison, where we see that Akemura Soga is here, and we see that he's just standing up. Now he's just doing lunges side to side. And he's I haven't spoken to anybody in a long time. Sorry about my voice there. Can you tell me, is it very cold out there right now? And Yura's what the world? What's this guy going on about? As Soga just goes, now tell me, what's the matter now? As we just see that Yura says, well, all of the scholars say that you're just insane. As you see that Soga just like snorts at that, being like, huh, really? Slaughtering hundreds of thousands and going insane? Wouldn't that be convenient for all of their little narratives? But let's get one thing straight right off the bat, mister. I chose, based on my beliefs and ideals, to kill all of those people. To protect this country and all of its people. I made that decision. And Yura up top is like, he says it so matter-of-factly, it's almost astonishing, right? As of course, Yura just now thinks to himself like, man, I'm able to sense his surroundings, albeit very faintly. And after 18 years in this vacuum, he's still self-aware and lucid. Any ordinary person would have just lost their mind. And above all, to think that he unleashed a malediction of that magnitude in a normal state of mind. As we just see, Yura is now standing up. He's no longer resting his hand on the top of the dome. And Yura just says, so did you also intentionally stop encroaching into my body? As we see that Soga's like, well, yes, I want to hear a little bit about the outside world. I haven't really conversed with anybody in a very long time, and I just want to keep an appropriate level of distance as the two of us talk. So just go and tell me this. Is my brother, is Kunishige Rokuhira dead? And we get the reveal here. Of course, we sort of all put this together from the whole idea of like, oh man, Kunishige Rokuhira gave the Shinichi to his most trusted ally, and a lot of us sort of like put two and two together. Oh, it was probably like his brother or like a really good friend or something like that. But also it's like, oh, would you look at this? This guy is Chihiro's uncle. That's pretty cool, right? And I really hate to break it to everybody, but this isn't as cool as we were all thinking. This actually is not Kunishige Rokuhira's brother. This came to me from a Twitter post by the user. Oh no, I closed Discord. This comes to us from Twitter user. His name is Hella at Kagurabachi. I'll put the link up on screen right now, or the image on screen. And pretty much what this tweet says is like, hey, Viz is misleading everybody again. The Sword State being Kunishige's brother-in-law theory came true. So apparently, like the way it's stated, like Genki means brother-in-law or somebody's older brother or older sister's husband, right? So Akemura is younger than his sister and than Kunishige, and he calls Kunishige as Nissan. It sort of sucks whenever Viz messes things up like this, because it sort of makes it harder on my job to like properly report all the information without going on Twitter before I upload the video and all of that various stuff. But it seems like the actual theory now is like, okay, this is Kunishige's wife, this is his or her brother, pretty much. So, like, I'm going to talk later at the very end of this video about like, oh, how did Kunishige like take his wife's name or something? No, Kunishige, that's just that name. His wife was named something Soga, and something happened to her at some point, so it's just sort of one of those things I feel like I needed to make another part of the video just talking about real quick, being like, hey, you know, we thought this was going to be a really neat thing, and it turns out it sort of wasn't. But all of that being said, back to the video. But hey, now we all know that this is actually Kunishige's brother-in-law, so it still makes sense to why he would like trust him a whole lot and give him the Shinichi of all things, right? But sort of is what it is there. Back to the rest of the video. But either way, Yura's just like, yes, I actually led the plot to kill Kunishige Rokuhira. And Soga's just like, oh, right. I figured that was the case when all of the enchanted blades started moving again all of a sudden. And now I take it that you've come here to kill me. Isn't that right? As Yura's like, yes, that was the plan of all things. As he sort of just goes through, and the Swordmaster sort of looks up as he realizes Yura is using his power. As we see that beside Yura, plants start to sprout out from the ground, and they all start to move, twist, and turn here. As we see, the Shinichi Enchanted Blade is now summoned here in the moment, as Yura takes it in to his grasp. Of course, the sword has disappeared from the 5th level of the Kabanabe HQ, where Kasen and Ichiki currently are. As Yura just said, I've come to correct a mistake of all of those so-called heroes out there. I actually approve of the malediction, and that day, I saw the right answer. Again, I really like the wording of saw here. It's very indicative of like, oh, wait a second. Maybe actually Yura was there on Shokoku. Maybe that theory stands, that he knew what was going on in the island and he saw the destruction, and that's why he wants to use the power of the malediction for himself. Oh, that's pretty interesting. But either way, Yura just continues being like, hey, the enchanted blade should be the solution to bring order to this world. But Kunishige Rokuhira rejected the malediction and sealed away all of the enchanted blades. I think that it was a tremendous mistake. As we now cut away from these two, as we look over to the battle that Ikuto just had with, of course, Yukisada, and of course, Hakuri and Kiri were also there, Rinji, Kabunabi, and all of these other people are here as well. As, of course, we just see the wall of iron sand that Ikuto had put up with his power has now disappeared, and we just see that Hakuri sort of looks out from behind this barrier and sees Rinji Kabunabi on the ground, and, of course, all the flowers sprouting out of his being pretty much, and just all around him. He isn't looking good, right? And of course, a lot of us thought that he was dead, but we sort of understand that he isn't. As he sort of just like gets up and he's like, oh god, no! And of course, seeing this, Hakuri remembers to the other time when he saw the Shinuchi being used, which was at the Rakuzaichi. And he just thinks like, oh, so all of those guys at the Rakuzaichi were just ordinary gangsters. So if sorcerers can withstand all of the malediction and like the Magatsumi's powers, but wait a second, like, no, and we sort of see that Hakuri starts freaking out, like, no, wait a second, I don't understand. As of course, he remembers some of Chihiro's words. If I don't do something and an enchanted blade takes the lives of innocent people, I wouldn't be able to bear that. As we also look to the library on the 3rd floor of the Kabunabi HQ, and we see that Natsuki and Yura, of course, while their bodies are covered in flowers from the Magatsumi, the two of them are working on standing up here in the moment, as we just see they're standing, moving around, and barely being able to withstand the power of the Shinuchi. As now, we cut back over to Yura and Soga, as Yura just says, if the sword bearer is insane, the power would be dangerous in his hands. Someone else should wield that sword instead. I still believe that this world needs a little bit more order. And I figured that someone like me needed to take on that role. But now, look at this. I'm learning that you unleashed a malediction with clarity and intention. You and I can understand each other. As we just see Soga's like, so tell me this, who are you? As we just see Yura says, let us lead with the enchanted blades. We can do it correctly and together. And as this happens, we hear a few footsteps and a crackle of electricity here in the dungeon. As Yura turns around from on top of the concrete dome, and he just looks around and says, you freaking demon. As he turns around and sees Azami standing here. Of course, his left arm is completely torn off at the elbow, no longer existing. The sprouts of the Shinuchi, the flowers, are coming off of his body. And Azami's eyes are soulless. Nothing is there. As he just walks down and Azami walks up, yep, that's right. As we just see that suddenly he jumps out of the way and dodges as Yura gets ready to point over and says, Dragonfly! And of course fires off a blast at Azami. But oh no, he catches Azami, and Azami's right arm flies off here in the moment, obliterated. As we just see Yura's like, oh, look at you, a walking corpse. As it doesn't matter, Azami still has his legs, and he comes around, taking the back end of his shoe, and slams the heel straight into the side of Yura's head. As Azami just thinks, might as well become a demon. As we just take a look to a young face of a young, unscarred Chihiro, as we just see Azami and Chiba standing inside a cafe of some kind, really reminiscent of Hinao's cafe, as Chihiro sits up on some bar stools next to the stool. And as we see this image, we cut one final time for this chapter of Kagurabachi. As we look outside of this restaurant, there's a lantern that reads, Subaru. As we look inside and at a sushi restaurant, of course one owned by one of the other sword bearers named Subaru, we see Shiba is sitting there looking at a phone that isn't ringing. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi, chapter number 100. And oh my gosh, there is just so much great in this chapter of Kagurabachi. I legitimately love the way that Yura does like a complete 360 or a 180 in this entire chapter. A 360 would be like coming all the way back around. A 180 is just like flipping his entire ideals and being like, hey, I'm going to kill the sword master here. I'm going to kill this man, Akemura Soga. And quickly, I know I'm going off tangent here, but like, Akemura Soga and Kunishige Rokuhira are brothers? Oh, what does that mean? Presumably, this man isn't married, or else they would have like already done something with like his marriage to a woman to try to like break him and get answers out of him, but like, I don't really know, but there's presumably the two different ways here of, I'm guessing that Soga is the main name of the family here, and that Rokuhira is actually the name of a woman who Kunishige married, of course, who is Chihira's mother, and that's that family's sword name. So pretty much Kunishige Rokuhira took his wife's name instead of taking the other names, you know what I'm saying, or keeping his main name of Soga. That's at least what I'm guessing there, right? But either way, with all of this, Yura's whole idea of, like, I'm going to kill you, Soga, I am going to wield the Shinichi myself, pretty much, but then, like, wait, this guy has a clarity of mind. He did that of his own free will. We should team up, brother. Like, why aren't we doing this stuff? It's honestly just a really funny moment, and one that I, like, legitimately love just to see, like, Yura, like, it makes complete sense. Like, hey, I wanted to kill you, but now I know that you're sort of with me and destroying the entire world. Let's do it together, my friend, right? And of course, this whole little bit of idea that regular sorcerers can withstand a little bit of the Magatsumi's power, it's pretty interesting, all things considered, just sitting down here and being like, oh, so this Renji Kabanaba guy can still sort of get up. I thought it was going to be something like maybe like he was a zombie of some kind now, like, oh, being controlled by Yura and the malediction's powers. And while that's still maybe something like whenever it's infected your spirit energy, it sort of like can jam up and like mess up like your spirit energy with like this other spirit energy or something like that. Who really knows, it's still an option there. And of course, getting the confirmation that, hey, Natsuki is fine, Aruha is, I say they're fine with like the biggest quotation marks of all time, but you know what, they're all doing fine, sorta, right? But with all of that as well, the demon named Azami coming out of nowhere to come through, and also just like start to fight Yura. His other arm gets taken off, but you know what? He still has his feet, and he comes through. And of course, the final thing of the chapter, Shiba. Oh my gosh, we haven't seen this man in so long, and here he is. And yeah, is he getting ready to join the fray? Of course, his best friend Kunishige Rokuhira and one of his best friends Azami is about to die. Is Shiba going to appear, and are we going to see Shiba do, like, rage mode stuff? Like, man, I am so excited for next chapter of Kagurabachi. Of course, it'll be chapter number 101. It's going to be so weird whenever I'm making the thumbnail for this video and have to put an extra digit in the thumbnail. Like, oh, it's going to feel so weird, but it's going to feel so awesome because I love this manga series of Kagurabachi. I hope you all love it, too. This has been a great time talking about this chapter of Kagurabachi. I loved it. I thought it was everything I needed a chapter 100 to be, besides for where's Chihiro? I understand we see a panel of them. We see it, but like, where is Chihiro actually? Where's Samura? Where are all the characters I care about, right? But with all of that being said, thank you guys so very much for watching this video on Kagurabachi, chapter number 100. 100. And yeah, I've talked about Kagurabachi plenty of times on this YouTube channel. If you guys want to go see those videos, well, very luckily for you, they'll be linked down in the description box of this video and in the end card of this video for the playlist of all my talking about Kagurabachi chapter stuff, right? If you also want to hear my thoughts on Kagurabachi as well, I am part of a podcast called the Kabanabi Headquarters. It is a podcast that hasn't uploaded in a while because I have not been available to edit the episodes because I've been so busy with college, but I promise not only to team, if any of you guys are watching this video, but also to all of the fans of that show as well, we will get more episodes out very soon. But with all of that being said, yeah, good chapter of Kagurabachi. I'll see you guys next time for chapter number 101. And with all of that being said, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma, signing out.